everybody, it's Mel here. Welcome back to my channel, Pebbles and Peach, and today we are back for the first episode of Featured Artist Friday. On this channel, I have with me author Marie McWilliams, who we're going to talk to today, but basically we're just going to talk to all different creatives and artists and crafters, but today we have author Marie. Yeah, but you also do like Bookstagram and Instagram and all that stuff, but we'll talk a bit about that later. But first of all, I thought we should start by talking about your book, which I have, which is Broken Mirrors, which is your debut book,
I wrote this, yes.
Yeah, so I just thought you could, like, if you could tell us a little bit about this.
It is about a girl who falls in love with someone and without knowing fully who he is, and then when she realises who he is, which is in fact a murderer slash mobster slash horrible criminal of the underworld. He's a nice guy, but he's a bad guy. And she realises that she has to make the decision to stay or to leave, and she decides to stay with him, and then there's just horrible things that happen after she makes that decision.
Yeah, well this is my copy, and I'm like a bit of the way, like I'm most of the way through, like halfway through now, and I have to actually say, like whenever I read it, it's like a proper like page turner. Like I do that thing, where you start to read it before bed and you're like, I'll do one more chapter to like
that
see what happens. That is
the best thing that ever happens with books. If you can't put it down, that is the best.
So I'm super excited. I've been reading mine. But yeah, like talking about writing, like I just kind of wanted to know as well, like when did you get into writing? Like how did that start? And like what is it that inspires you to write books like this? Because obviously this is like quite a dark, like heavy book. Like where do you get that like from?
Well, I enjoyed writing, and English lit and everything was always my favourite topics when I was back in school. But I kind of just, reading sort of fell by the wayside. You know, you get a job, you grow up, career, blah, blah, blah. And all those kind of things just sort of fall back down. But when I had my daughter, I got really bad postnatal depression. And when I went to see a counsellor, she asked me a question which I couldn't answer, and it was a very simple question. What do you do for you? And I couldn't give her an answer. I tried to like bluff her with like, oh, I have bubble baths, and she said that washing doesn't count as a hobby, so I was like, fair enough. So I had to kind of try and think, well, she was like, well, what did you enjoy throughout your life? And I was like, well, I've always really liked writing and really liked reading. And she was like, right, well, do that again. So I started to write. I wrote the book. I started a blog. I just dove right in, and I joined the book community on Instagram, and I just went for it. And I'm just a very naturally dark person, to answer that part, so I kind of tend to gravitate towards, maybe you can probably tell behind me, but horror and crime and stuff like that just tends to be what I like, so that's what I read, so that's what I kind of write.
But it's kind of cool because you've like obviously then turned that darkness into something that you've like made and like made
exactly
art out of.
Like honestly, it's so cathartic and therapeutic. It's like, you know, you're creative, so you get it. Like you're creative, so you get the like that. It really is a way to process things that you're feeling, and you know, sometimes the metaphors are obvious and sometimes they're like more subtle, but it's a way for you to like go through those thoughts and emotions and maybe come to like a better conclusion or understand the situation and yourself better.
And do you have, if that's like your process, what is your process for like sitting down to write? Because I know you do like a lot of like short stories, and like is that different process to sitting to write like a big
I find short stories so much easier. A lot of writers find it the other way around, but I find short stories so much easier because, especially if they have a theme, if they turn around and they're like, okay, the theme is like, I don't know, I've got one coming out in a publication soon, which is about dangers that come from the sky. Like it calls from the sky, so it's about anything bad or horror-y or whatever, science fiction, but it has to be a threat coming from the sky. So as soon as they said that, I'm like, right, what do I want? And then my mind just kind of goes from there. If you can give me like a theme, I find a short story really like, oh, so I've got an idea, and then I just go with it. Yeah. But with the novel, it's like a much, you really are, I can't remember who said it, but like the process of writing is like bleeding onto a page. And that's what it's like, because like with a novel you're like, okay, you've got this whole thing in your head and it's huge, and you know you want to get from point A to point B, and maybe you know a couple of things in the way, but you don't know the exact journey, so it's like a whole process, and it can take a really long time for you to get it to go the direction you want it to go. And then there's the rereading and the editing and which obviously is much easier when it's just 1,000 words or something.
So writing Broken Mirrors, like how long would you roughly say that
one didn't actually take me as long as the one that I'm writing now, which it's taken me ages. That one only took me maybe like, including like editing and stuff, like maybe like 8 months or something, like 6, 7, 8 months. Whereas the one that I'm on now, I keep like going away from it and writing a load of short stories and then going back and then going away from it, and it's just like, I can't focus. I just keep getting distracted. I'm like, oh, another short story competition, and then that's where I just go off on that tangent for a while,
and then come back to it.
That's
cool. So it's like a different process for different things. That's really cool. So the main character in Broken Mirrors,
yes,
also called Marie.
Yes.
So I kind of wanted to ask you, is that like intentional? Was she based off of you, or
no,
is that just?
I have no imagination for names. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but do you know the name of my protagonist of my second novel?
Who?
Mel.
No, it's not.
Swear to God.
Is it actually?
Mel Graham.
Mel Graham.
That is the name, and I named her after you. Like that. Yeah. Oh, swear, that's what I do.
You never told me that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
honestly,
that's so cool.
And I've written like 3/4 of it as well. I can send it to you. Yeah, I literally am like, who of my friends can I still name? So like the bad guy in that, the last name is Savage.
Yeah.
One of my best friends. That was her maiden name.
Oh, okay, so you get like names
just
off
still
of people
Sarah,
that you know.
the Sarah, my sister.
But they're not, so they're not like based on those people, it's just your way of like
I literally just want like names, and I'm like, I just take like this friend's first name and this friend's second name, and I'm like, boop.
That's actually a really cool idea there.
Yes, yeah. So I literally was like, Marie. But when, like, I did write that when I was going through kind of like a dark period with postnatal depression, and there are parts to do with like pregnancy and losing babies and the difficulties of fertility, because I experienced that in the past as well. And some awful things happened to her, some dark things to do with like her body being invaded and things like that. And I think now, I maybe didn't realise at the time, but when I look at it now, I'm like, okay, that you were writing that sort of thing because you were writing from that mindset, like you were thinking about,
like drawn from those experiences.
Yeah, about how you had felt after, you know, my body had changed after this very big experience, and then the negative emotional impact that it had on me. And the depression, like, it's very strange, postnatal depression, because I have suffered mental health issues. I've got depression in sort of general, but postnatal depression was a very different type of depression because it was very strange and dissociative. Like, I've never felt so disconnected from everything before.
Yeah.
So I think that when I wrote that, it was a way for me to like almost reconnect and get in touch with that again.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. So it's like almost like therapeutic, like
exactly
writing.
Yeah.
So it's like that's so cool. So also when I talked about, you've started joining the Bookstagram community for quite a while. You've done really, really well in there. You've recently joined YouTube. You recently started TikTok, and it's all going really well. It's just wanted to know if you wanted to tell us a bit about like that, like what drew you into joining the Bookstagram. And
well, I have a friend who's a literary agent, and he had said that one of the main questions that authors get asked when they're, because this is my dreams one day, you know, get like big publication. So he was like, they ask, what's their platform like? What's their platform? So it's all about social media now, as you know. Nobody traditionally advertises anymore. So I was like, okay, well, I'll have a look. And the Bookstagram community is just like the nicest people in the world. Like, it's literally just a bunch of like nerdy people talking about books. That's what it is. It's like, here's a book I like, and then everybody goes, oh, I like that book too. And it's just, everybody's really lovely and supportive. And anytime someone releases a book, everybody buys it and shares it and supports. And it's just really nice to be like a part of that community. I just love it on there. And then there's obviously like a horror kind of community, so there's like the Bookstagram then goes down into niches, so you've got like a lot of it's mostly fantasy and young adult, which I'm not really interested in, but then there's like the horror community as well, and they're really great and supportive,
they're more active in that kind
exactly, and everybody again buys each other's books, promotes each other. I then started the YouTube channel, got advice from yourself, thank you. That like went pretty well, and there's a horror kind of community and book community on there as well, so there's another great group of people. In fact, Regina's Haunted Library, she's one of my favourite channels. She's actually put together a book of short stories written by horror tubers to raise money for charity.
That's amazing.
Which is like got one of my stories in it as well. So like there's like everybody kind of really like creatively helps each other.
Well, that's what you find, because I think we talked about this before you joined YouTube. It's like one of the main things that I love about it is literally like everyone is so supportive. Like you just like everyone's so nice, and like
I know there are negative things online, and I see all the time about like trolling and all this sort of stuff, but I have to say I have really rarely experienced it. Like most of the things that people say to me are always really nice, and I'm like, you know, you get the odd perv. Mostly everybody's really nice to you, and I'm like,
encouraging and supportive, and like and it's, plus it's really fun.
And you're like, I'm having a bad day, and everybody's like, we're here for you, it's great, and I really enjoy it, to be honest. So I just kind of kept at it, and now I'm at a stage where I'm able to get paid to do it, which is pretty good.
It's amazing.
So,
and like so quickly too, like you grew it like so fast.
well, it was
It's
3
amazing.
years, so not as quick as like some people are like, here's a video and then viral. So I kind of built it up gradually. But
that's how you've met like all those like awesome people.
Exactly,
like, people
exactly.
that share the same like stuff that you like, which actually was what I was going to ask you as well, because like obviously you kind of carved out into this like horror genre, and then like was that just something that you like naturally gravitated towards,
Yeah.
or like was it just like what is it that draws you in about horror? And like here's some, obviously you love reading, so like here's some of your favorite like horror writers. Is that kind of what part of what inspires all that as well?
Yeah, like Stephen King would be a big one of mine. He wrote a book on writing actually, which I definitely recommend if you want to write. And he always said that like if you've got no time for reading, then you've got no time for writing.
Yeah.
Because the only way to learn how to write better is to read more. And this is what I read. You know, I've never been the romantic book type, the fantasy young adult. I tried a couple of times. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. It's too fluffy for me. It's just not my cup of tea. Those are great books, but they just aren't for me. I prefer things that explore the worst parts of humanity. I find horror to be the most amazing genre because horror literally can be anything. It can be a literal thing, a person with a knife, something that can happen every day, or it can be something completely out there, some monster, some demon. You can be as inventive as you want, as crazy as you want, but deep down under all of it, they're like exploring the parts of us that we don't want to admit exist. Yeah. And that's the type of book that I like to read, and the types of books and stories that I like to write. It's those parts of us where we're like, oh no, I would never do that, or I would well, would you? Though genuinely, when you think about
like
it,
the macabre and like the dark and like interesting parts that people don't really like to talk about as much maybe necessarily. Like taboo and like
all those things that are in the back of your head, those wee thoughts that pop up and you go, oh no, put that away. All the dark things that are in the wee box at the back of your brain. That's the stuff that I find most interesting. So I like, Stephen King would be a big, well-known one. I think he's a brilliant writer, and he would be a big inspiration, but most of the books that inspired me would be very traditional, kind of classic gothic horror, like Dracula and Frankenstein,
like
and Shirley Jackson and things like that, and Daphne du Maurier and all those types of books. I just find the atmosphere, the like really truly sort of the idea of like traditional kind of horror I just loved as a kid growing up, and then as an English lit student and all that sort of stuff I just loved. So that's sort of my vibe now. So
you've just grown up with it, really?
Yeah.
It's been part of everything that you do, kind of?
What's that thing on TikTok where the people are like, I'm a grown up now and I can afford to buy grown up things with my money, but it's just people buying toys and shit. That's what I do. I'm like, I have money now and I can buy, like a candelabra with pumpkins on it. I just want my house to look like I live in Dracula's castle, and then I just spend my money on like books and
I love
horror toys.
I love it as well. And like this room, it's like you can feel like the atmosphere to it. Like it has like life about it that you've like brought in, but it's all these weird little like,
I am a hoarder. I've been it's my mum. You have to blame my mum for a lot of this. First of all, she raised me on Hollywood movies, including Hitchcock.
Okay.
So then she's obsessed with whodunits, so I watched constantly every daytime show when I was a kid. Like I'm talking like P1, P2. All the murder shows that were on during the day, we were watching Diagnosis Murder, Murder, She Wrote, and then when I'm older, the ones that are on in the evening time. And then she also just didn't give a crap what me and my sister watched. So I just watched whatever I wanted at a way too early age. So she's definitely responsible for all the horror movies that I like, because I was watching them when I was like in primary school. But she's also like obsessed with thrifting and all things vintage, and the idea of an object having a history behind it and a life and a story of its own. So I grew up going to carpet sales and things like that. So I have this vast collection and I'm like, ooh, a skull, and I just like hoard all this sort of stuff. And then it's the same with vintage books. I just love the idea of someone having read that, 50 years, 100 years ago. Yeah. Like, who was that person? Like, did they love the story and the inscriptions inside them, like Happy Christmas 1912 or something? I just love that. Like, that was somebody's gift. Did that person 110 years ago or whatever it is enjoy that book, and did it get passed down from generation and then end up in my hands? I love it. And I love like the idea that one day, I love the idea of people reading my stuff and liking it now. Obviously, that's the best thing about it. Like, people who think that you can get into writing to make money, it's not gonna happen, honey. Unless you're like Stephen King, Leigh Bardugo, all those big giant authors. most authors have other jobs and they don't actually make a huge amount of money from it.
Yeah, but your book's been read like all over the world and stuff.
Yeah, like
that's so cool.
Yeah, people contacted me from literally like Australia, India, America, all over the place, all over Europe, telling me they enjoyed my book, and I love that's why you do it, because when somebody says that like they loved your story and they really connected with it and gives you 5 stars and you've never met them before in your life and you look and you're like, oh, they're from Australia, and it just, that is the feeling that like I live for, kind of thing. And the idea that maybe your book would be passed and end up like going from person to person to person like these books, I just love that idea. Not that I think I'm not necessarily going to write anything like like a classic or anything, but I just love the idea of storytelling and of it, like, you know, over time being shared.
Speaking of, what projects are you working on next? Like, are we allowed to know any like details about what's happening?
Well, do you want to know about Mel?
You said,
do you want to know about Mel?
Why not a little bit about Mel?
So Mel is a police detective in Belfast with PTSD who's just returned to work. She was off after a traumatizing incident in work. And then there's a series of deaths. Some of them look like they're accidents. Some of them are flat out murder. And she starts to get haunted by visions, nightmares, literal ghosts and poltergeists are haunting her. And they seem to be trying to talk to her about these deaths. And she soon realises that they're connected. And that not only are they connected and being, like, are all murder and being committed by the same serial killer, that serial killer is actually copycatting a killer that no one knew about that existed a century before in Belfast.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like connecting the 2 timelines together.
Oh, that sounds so cool.
And it's her trying to understand what the ghosts are trying to tell her and decipher their messages and try to stop this killer, because they too want the kind of cycle to stop repeating itself.
Okay, and this is the next novel. Like, when can we expect?
Oh, when I get off my ass and write it. I'm like 3/4 of the way through, and I am like, I do need to like get back on it and just go hell for leather for it, because I think if I just sat down, I know exactly what I want to write. It's just like other things keep happening.
So maybe 2021, 2022?
Maybe, yeah, within the next year or two, hopefully it'll be out and hopefully it'll be well received.
Well, until then, obviously people can find you, they can read your short stories, they can find Broken Mirrors, which I will link down below in the description box if you guys want to check it out. Obviously I'm reading it at the minute. Absolutely brilliant read. Please go check it out. And I'll leave all the links for like your Instagram, TikTok, your YouTube channel. So please,
come say hi.
Yeah, please head over, say hi. Give a wave that we'd sent you from here.
Yeah.
And definitely check them out. That all linked below. But thank you so much for being
Thank
the
you
first.
for having me.
And getting back into Featured Artist Friday.
I feel honoured to be the beginning of a series here.
Yeah, it was so good. So yeah, don't forget to leave a comment, say hi, thank Marie for being here, give us a big thumbs up, and I will leave this link below. Please check it out. But thank you guys so much for watching.
Bye.
Bye. So thank you so much again to Marie McWilliams for helping me kick off these Featured Artist Fridays, where we're going to interview all different types of creatives, from authors and singers and musicians and artists. And I just was so excited that we got to kick it off in that way. It was so much fun to do. But if you have any interest in coming on, having a little bit of a chat and talking about what you do, then you can hit me up on email, pebblesandpeach@gmail.com. It'll be linked in the description box, or just send me a wee message on Instagram. We'll have a chat and see if we can get you on. But yeah, thank you so much for watching the first episode of the series. I'm really looking forward to diving into this a little bit more, but I hope you guys enjoyed episode 1. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys on the next upload. Bye guys! Hello, we're testing the video.
I have Elvira vibes today. So like,
you just video it.
Mumble.
But like, video it, but you just take like little like screen grabbies. So you can do like, and then it might turn it better. So have you ever made a thumbnail like this?
No, I always like just take like pictures, or then Ali just takes stills out of the video kind of thing.
Yeah, I would take stills out of the video, but I like to do this sometimes, and then you can pick like a good one. Come in a wee bit. Okay, that's what she said. I'm almost halfway through.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's really good. Like, actually, wait, I'm gonna
Can you tell I wrote it in a really fucked up period of my life?
No!
Wait till the end.
That might be the one.
You've got a lovely smile. I always love the way as well, like a mark of like someone who social influency type stuff is that immediately it's like straight into that same pose that, you know, that kind of like, or the, like, you know, the head tilt.
Right. Okay.
Professional.
I'll raise a glass to you, and you'll raise a glass to to me. And when there